You are watching Xirtus.
Oh, hey, welcome to Synctank. I think we're all here. You caught me right in the middle of my important studies.
Manly Palmer Hall.
Oh, just a little light reading. Just because it's a Sunday.
Clearly a veiled
The
reference
Diamond Jubilee edition.
to Tyler Robinson. Tyler being the guard of the Masonic Hall to make sure everybody has the proper membership to attend the meeting. Yeah.
Or else. And he's got like a really sharp sword that I guarantee you that he's
I just
never
learned that
used.
yesterday. I feel like I may have heard that at some point in the past, but I'm no expert on Freemasonry like you, Thomas. But Bill was pointing that out. That he's like Tyler. He's like immediately when he saw that the suspect's name is Tyler, he says that's the guy. That's the job title of in a Masonic hall to make sure that the people there when they enter are indeed appropriate for that.
The bodyguard. Yeah, he's a bodyguard.
Yeah, he's a bouncer basically. He's a bouncer at the Masonic Club.
And speaking of, what is the password, guys? What's the password?
Fidelio is the password to the gate. I don't know the password to the house.
Okay. Well, now we're gonna have to steal your daughter. Sorry.
Oh no! I knew there would be the most dire consequences if I said that. So okay, shit. Oh well.
So, well, we were talking about blueberries a second ago, and I can't remember exactly how we got onto the blueberry thread. Jupiter, and Blue, and apparently the Charlie Kirk funeral.
Oh no!
Oh no!
She froze out of existence for the time being.
Well, and a coworker had a sync on blueberries and had like a really good list of all these different colors of blue in the posts. And I should have my blue light on, but I'm not really familiar with like the Jupiter connection and the color blue connection.
I'm not familiar with that either, but I don't know where I feel like Anna Nicole just had a whole sync thread that she was going to enlighten us on, and now she's.
Well, I can give a preview on another sync thread that I guarantee you that can wrap back around because that's what we do here is at Synctank. Mm-hmm. So Will and I have been talking about watching this Clifford movie, and I'm not going to give like a full breakdown because we're going to do like its own video on that. But it wound back to this really interesting original thread of this movie, The Bad Seed, from the late 1950s.
Yeah, there's multiple versions of that movie too.
Well, I can't find the 60s version, but I saw. Okay, so I've been on like a watching spree. I saw the original Bad Seed from *58. I saw the Rob Lowe remake 2018. I saw the Bad Seed Returns from 2022, which you don't have to see. You don't even have to see the remake.
I didn't know that they had any remake of the Bad Seed. I just know the original. And there's different versions with the lightning and then the other version where they spank her.
Oh, you're not supposed to. It specifically says at the end of the movie to not talk about the lightning.
Oh yeah, it says when you go to Fight Club to not talk about Fight Club. But people, what do? Why are there new members? Come on.
We're not allowed to talk about the lightning. But so this is like this original archetype, and the original version of the Bad Seed was a book that turns into a play, and the play blows up, and the book blows up, and then of course there's a movie all in the span of like 2 or 3 years, and then it gets remade again about a decade later, but that one doesn't really get as much attention, but it sets up this archetype for literally the bad seed. Like, what if you have a kid and the kid ends up being a psychopath or a murderer or an assassin, right? Like what are the signs? And what was interesting is in the Bad Seed, it really hones in on Jungian archetypes. They're talking about Sigmund Freud. They're talking about the nature versus nurture, and that are some people just born to be bad, you know what I mean? Or is it that they were raised and part of the Bad Seed and some of the movies that come after it, the kids will be like adopted or they'll get transitioned into another family for some various reason, like they're being abused or whatever. And that it does sort of lean towards the nature because there's something scary about you have a kid, there's no history of anything wrong in your entire family line, no sign of violence. and then bam, all of a sudden they're just doing horrific things to.
Mhm.
It usually escalates from animals to strangers to family members, and then finally to adult family members. That's like the full progression.
Yeah, we need to talk about Kevin. By the way, we need to talk about Kevin. That's the premise, and that film syncs incredibly well with Marilyn Manson's album "Born Villain." So you get Born Villain, born, born this way. But, yeah.
So we actually, I imposed a little bit of a line here because within this archetype of the bad seed, bad child sort of like archetype, within that, one of the lines is they can't be demonic or necessarily supernatural, because that now you're talking about Poltergeist, and you're talking about the bad of Omen, you're talking about all these other movies, and then also when it gets into like modern shooter stuff, like let's talk about Kevin. And there was also that Netflix series called Adolescence that was like the UK version with like a knife, and that those are sort of like,
they said that, so that there's a debate on that, if in fact the show was inspired or based upon that that happening, but then they switched the race, which people felt was inflammatory. If it even is based on that, but it seemed kind of on point. Like, I don't know. I can't weigh in.
Is who on point?
The show. So there was an incident, I believe, in the UK that people have argued that show Adolescence was drawing from, but the races were switched. So there was the argument that they couldn't, they were doing that Netflix type thing, but I don't know if that's true or not. So I'm not going to weigh in completely one way or the other, because I don't know.
It's the exact same archetype though, and I guess so. It starts at Bad Seed, where it's like a little girl in black and white, and then it starts to escalate. And then in the 80s and 90s, you get Problem Child first, which is sort of the slapstick comedy version of that. There's one called Michael, I believe, and this one is about the kid from Blank Check, and he's like legitimately psycho, and it's not fun and it's not funny at all. And then there's like The Good Son, which is taking someone that is funny and then making them not funny. Like it was the complete inversion of the Home Alone Macaulay Culkin that everyone knew. And
yeah. And so that film, sorry to do this, is what I do, but that film syncs with the Nick Cave album, and the Bad Seeds. That's his band, Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds.
Really?
Which is the album, I believe, came out the same year. I'd have to double check that, but I'm pretty sure the album, his album, The Good Son, came out right around the same time as the film The Good Son. I've never uploaded it, but it's pretty phenomenal. And
okay, so this is another interesting component of this, is that when we get into this like Bad Seed territory, at least like the movie version, there's like a Home Alone aspect to it. Even in The Good Son, he creates his own little sort of like crossbow, and they use this to shoot bolts. I think they're like shooting bolts and they're hitting signs, and eventually they go after like a dog. And that's one of the first escalations that you see in these stories, is that the kid will always start to first target some kind of like a small animal. And I wonder, like, isn't this a normal part of growing up, especially if you're outdoors and you're with like animals and bugs and lizards and stuff, that at a certain point a kid's gonna like cut a worm in half to see if it grows into two parts.
But they don't always have Mr. Freeway, you know what I mean? Where they like,
okay, well, you jump all the way to the end. Although, man, Mr. Freeway is a very, at least in my weird brain, that's an intrusive thought that I've definitely has crossed my mind. I wouldn't like go out and make a whole dummy.
We shouldn't be even talking about this, but this is the thing, is that he was the highest paid actor, maybe, at that time, when the amount that Macaulay Culkin got paid to be the good son, like it was insane how much he was getting paid. It was like Jim Carrey and Macaulay Culkin were like the two biggest actors, right? I think at the time, I could be mistaken, but I think around then. And Elijah Wood got paid like a fraction of what Macaulay Culkin did to do that movie, because after Home Alone, he was like, but he completely 180'd what everyone loved about Macaulay Culkin was, like, he's just so cute, and then he was like this dark, evil kid. He's the bad guy who's ready to kill his mom. and it was like there's something energetically that just destroyed Macaulay Culkin. I mean, a lot of people will blame different things. I blame that movie, like for every, like I think his whole future as an actor, like that was like the turning point of his whole career. Because it's like, and Elijah Wood became the much bigger actor. You know, Elijah Wood has been in so many movies. He's been so prolific. Macaulay Culkin, he's great. I mean, you know, he was great in Party Monster, but Party Monster just ends up feeling like Home Alone 7 Disco Bloodbath. Like it's crazy. Like the vast distinction between that little lovable kid in Home Alone and then like what followed in his career after The Good Son. But, yeah.
Well, it's kind of, in my mind though, Home Alone is still bad seed, because again, the progression is like they start at animals and then they go to other kids and then they go to strangers, usually like adults, and then it'll like, as it escalates, it gets closer and closer to the family, to the point where the biggest fear is realized, in which your own kid kills you, right? And in which like, they take out the adults.
It's the difference between E.T. and Poltergeist, right? Where it's like E.T. we associate with, we all love E.T. We all love Macaulay Culkin and Home Alone, you know, because it's justified. People are trying to break into the house. Whereas like E.T., he's using Elliot's life force to survive, and he's draining the kid. The kid's sick. He's sick. He's taking, and it's like, but we're like, hey, you know, the aliens got to survive. But when the beast,
though, man, because the amount of sadism that's involved with Home Alone, it's gonna like, I'm gonna light someone's head on fire and then I'm gonna pour tar on them. Like it takes this extra sadistic and theatrical aspect to it, that you hit it on the head though. It's that, is it justified? And if it's justified, then the audience plays along. And here's a perfect example. That in Problem Child, as I'm watching all these different bad seed related movies, and I swear I'm not spoiling it, Will. I see Will popping in here to yell at me and then leaves again. But like one of the things in Problem Child you notice is that they vilify the mom right away, and the mom is trying to replace her need of children with lots of animals, and she's got cats and she's got this annoying bird. But what they do is they set it up early to justify, like, okay, well, here's a family member that can get hurt, and since she's represented by cats and birds, now Junior can also be mean to cats and birds without him being like an absolute psycho, and the audience is kind of on his side. And it's interesting to see it like evolve that way.
Right. I feel like that there's something here that like we're touching upon, because like if like just considering the way that that we're looking at the audience reaction to these different characters, and they can be the same thing, but we're looking at Macaulay Culkin in a comedic film messing with these guys trying to rob the house while his mother's away, and his love for his mother, and just it's all about, he misses his mom, and he feels really bad that he was mean to her at all, you know, and he's like, I wish you would all just go away, you know. And then you have with The Good Son, it's like he is this absolute demon bad seed, and we're like, we like basically celebrate his death at the end of the film. Like your general audience member, like they get you to that point where this kid that you just loved and would, you know, you're like, you want him to defend his house, and now he's like, you know, basically destroying his house and his family. You know, it's like,
I think what The Good Son was missing a little bit was like a nuance to it, where like he's just pure bad and he can't be good at all. Like he almost is just possessed by some kind of a demon, and that part makes it, I think, a little bit less believable. And I think that maybe is why it get like some of those panned reviews where like you see let's talk about Kevin style movie. Well, this is kind of like a Good Son, but in like a more nuanced and like realistic angle, I think.
Right. Yeah.
And I guess ultimately the theme here being that you could raise a kid and you don't know if it's nurture or nature, that they'll just eventually take out an adult, and that the only real difference is whether or not that seems justified. And right now, with other events that recently happened, you can see some audiences are primed to think like the bad guy got taken down, and then therefore now the good son really is a good son, and then there's a whole other camp that sees it as like the bad seed.